blacks were inferior, hypersexual. They couldn't survive in America without the supervision of whites. And he even invented, now here's where the mental illness is coming in. Please listen to me, family, and please share this. Now this is where the illness came in. First, the first two doctors, Joshua Knott and Dr. Samuel Cartwright, said we were inferior with the skull structure, proved we were inferior. Now, Dr. Samuel Cartwright in 1851, he took it to a different level. Now he was saying we were mentally ill. In 1851, with his book, The Physical Peculiarities of the Negro Race, a book you can still get, now he said blacks were mentally ill. He even invented a mental illness called drapetomania. Drapetomania, an illness that is still in the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the Bible of mental illnesses. In 1851, he invented, made up, fabricated a disease that he said blacks had called drapetomania. He said drapetomania was a disease, that a mental illness that black people had that caused them to want to run, flee from their master, and break their master's property. It's called drapetomania. D-R-A-P-O-E-M-A-N-I-A. Drapetomania. All you got to do is Google it and it'll come right up and you'll see a picture of Dr. Samuel Cartwright. I'm going to repeat it. He said drapetomania was a mental illness by black people that caused them to want to run from their master, break their master's property. It's a mental illness. It's still in the books. So let me get this right, Dr. Samuel Cartwright. Europeans come to Africa, kidnap us out of Africa against our will, bring us to the wilderness of North America, make us work from sun up to sundown at the force of a whip, a tarred and feather whip, at the force of being hung, lynched, and raped in a country that is not ours. And you said we got a mental illness because we wanted freedom? Even an animal, even birds want to be free. It's an innate quality than anything it's living. Anything it's living wants to be free. That's why when they see birds flying, they said free as a bird. So you're saying because we wanted to be free, we had a mental illness? Wow, that is very interesting. But this is a mental illness that he came out with called drapetomania. The signer, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence in the 1800s also, by the name of Benjamin Rush out of Philadelphia. Write his name down. He is one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence with Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and all them other demons. His name is Benjamin Rush. He was, quote unquote, a humanitarian. I don't know how he got that title. A physician, a doctor, and a scientist. Benjamin Rush, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, going on with the notion that black people are now mentally ill, black slaves, in 1800s when we were in bondage. He said we had a mental illness called nigritude. Nigritude. This is what he called it. Benjamin Rush, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, said black people had a mental illness called nigritude that once again proved that blacks were inferior, less intelligent, hypersexual, and not able to survive without whites. And he said the only way to cure this disease of nigritude, which was our black and dark skin, was for us to become white. This is what Benjamin Rush said. So we have nigritude. Said because of our black skin, it showed that we were inferior. And the only way for us to cure this disease of nigritude, I'm not making this term up. This is the actual term Benjamin Rush, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, came up with. He said the only way to cure it was for us to come white. And going back to Dr. Samuel Cartwright, he said the only way for us to cure drapetomania, our supposed mental illness to make us want to run from our slave master and break his property, was for the slave master to beat the devil out of us. He said that was the only way to cure it, for the slave master to beat the devil out of us. He said that was the way to cure drapetomania. You see what's going on here? These were actual doctors and physicians, and they would go from plantation to plantation selling these lies because they had the title of doctor and physician to an already racist and hate-filled slave master. So now they're giving them justification of the horrific acts that they were committing against. He said these niggers are crazy. See, this is the scientific racism. This is where it came from. This is documented history. Now, in 1848, in Virginia, write this down, they opened the first mental asylum for black people. It was called Central State Hospital for the Colored Insane. I'm going to say it again. In the 1840s, and in Virginia, the state actually raised $10,000 to open this hospital. It was called Central State Hospital for the Colored Insane. The first hospital for black people with what they called unsound mind. If anyone saw my post when I told everyone on Facebook that I was going to do this message tonight, you should have saw a picture of a bunch of black people sitting in a kitchen. They were some of their first patients at this central hospital in Virginia. Listen to what they did to these people here. Listen to me, good family. This is the Hour of Power with Brother Sharif. Proceeding to give you what you need, like Biggie says, as we proceed to give you what you need. At this central hospital in Virginia in the 1840s, what they would do is, after these doctors on one all around the country selling the idea that we were mentally ill and we would run, slaves that the slave master deemed out of control, they couldn't control them because they were immoral, not listening, trying to run, the slave master would send them off to these mental asylums. But the mental asylums would charge the slave master to house them, to keep them. So again, the slave master would pay Central Hospital and others that opened after them to house these supposed mentally ill slaves. There wasn't nothing wrong with us. Nothing wrong with them. But guess how they funded, other than the state raising $10,000 to open, guess how they funded these hospitals? Say you had, this is just a hypothetical example, but it's actually real. Say you had an aunt in this facility, and her name was Aunt Gertrude, and you would go there to visit her. You go to visit Aunt Gertrude. You're like, okay, I'm here to visit my Aunt Gertrude. Can I see her? Oh, she's busy right now. We can't see her? No, she's in the kitchen cooking. Cooking? How is she a patient and she's cooking? Well, yeah, she's cooking. So another example. You come there to go see Uncle Leroy. Can I see my Uncle Leroy? No, he's busy right now. Well, where is he? He's out in the field. He's outside tilling the field and mowing the grass. Well, I thought he was a patient here. How is he mowing the grass? So what these facilities that were state-run, what they were doing, they were getting paid to have patients, but the patients were patients and employees at the same time. So they didn't have to hire any employees and pay them because the patients were patients that they were getting paid to take care of, and they were employees at the same time. So they were amassing huge amount of wealth very quick because they were getting paid to have the patients, but the patients were the employees. Cooking, cleaning, tilling the field, crops, engineering, making sure it was air conditioned, whatever they needed. The patients were the employees, but of course they weren't getting paid. They were being sexually abused, physically abused. The conditions there were below subhuman. So if you have an operation and you don't got to pay no employees, but things are still getting done, you're going to amass a huge amount of wealth. This is the Central State Hospital in Virginia for the color insane. And they used to separate the blacks from the whites. They said the blacks would impede the growth in the mental health of the whites, so they used to separate them. This is at Central State Hospital in Virginia. The same place where we first was brought off a slave ship in 1611. The 21 first slaves brought to America was brought to Virginia, a wicked country. All of them, a wicked state. All of them are wicked, but that's got to be one of the worst ones. This is in Virginia. This was in the 1840s. Look it up. Central State Hospital for the Colored Insane. The first hospital developed for black people that was supposed of unsound mind. In 1880, in Goldsboro, North Carolina, not too far from where I just moved from. I just moved from Durham, North Carolina. Goldsboro, North Carolina is about 2 hours away. Listen to this. A hospital that still exists now. It's called Cherry Hospital. You can look it up. Back then it was called the Eastern Asylum Hospital for the Colored Insane. The Eastern Asylum Hospital for the Colored Insane. That opened around 1880. Do you know they used to practice the same scientific racism, the same exploitation of black people? Do you know it opened in 1880, just 15 years after slavery supposedly ended? Because remember, slavery supposedly ended in 1865. This hospital opened in 1880 in Goldsboro, North Carolina. Do you know in 1925 they admitted a black man? He wasn't even a man yet. He was only 17 years old. A patient. He was deaf, but he wasn't mentally ill. His name was Junius Wilson. Junis. Junius Wilson, 17 years old, accused of raping a woman. I believe she was a white woman, because that's what they used to do at all that time, which he didn't do. They brought him there in 1925. He was deaf, but he wasn't mentally ill. Accused him of raping this white woman. They castrated the brother. No trial. No investigation, nothing. This is in 1925. Junius Wilson. All you got to do is look up the story of Junius Wilson. You can get a book about him on Amazon. Castrated the brother at 17 years old. Kept him in solitary confinement and kept him in the most restrictive part of the mental asylum in 1925. In 1973, I believe, after further investigation, they found that the brother was innocent, that he didn't do this rape that they accused him of back in 1925. They castrated him by now. He spent 45 some years in this mental asylum for the supposed rape. Do you think they released him after they found that he was innocent of the rape? No, they just moved him to a less restrictive part of the mental asylum. And then the hospital, which used to be called the Eastern Asylum, went through many name changes. And now, today, the hospital still exists in Goldsboro, North Carolina. I believe Sister Tammy is watching. You're there in North Carolina. You could bear witness to this, sis. The hospital is still there, and it's under the name Cherry Hospital in Goldsboro, North Carolina. They castrated this brother at 17 years old for a rape he didn't commit. And they said he was mentally ill. See the history? See the history of what they did to us? Yes, this is what they did to us. This is where these labels of us being mentally ill, crazy, insane, out of our minds, unsound mind. All these labels started during slavery time. And as time went on, many other doctors, many other scientists, many other physicians did the same thing, as going way back to Dr. Samuel Morton, Dr. Joshua Knott, Dr. Samuel Cartwright, who's one of the worst ones, who said we had a mental illness called drapetomania, which caused us to break our master's property and run from our slave master. See, and I could be here for another 2 hours easily, giving you names of other doctors, even in present day, who did the same thing. So now, we shouldn't be surprised of how we got these labels. I'm not saying that there's not mental illnesses. Of course there's mental illnesses. I'm talking about the stigma, the label, the unjust label of being labeled mentally ill, crazy, insane, unsound mind. Now we have a backdrop of where this came from.